Welcome. What a start for an exciting event. And in fact, I think that what we just learned from today's presentation is that our ability to multi-process and to learn to be social entrepreneurs is certainly top of mind. And again, thank you for your patience. I am Kathaleena Edward Monds, founding director for the Center for Educational Opportunity. And we are excited and delighted to have some amazing speakers in today's event. And so today's event is funded by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs through a HUD grant, the HUD Housing and Financial Literacy Grant, and it's entitled Women and Money. It's a kickoff, which simply means that we hope that what will happen today after we've gotten over our technology challenges will engage you into a few more sessions in the future to learn about women. And while our ultimate goal is to empower women to be homeowners, to be entrepreneurs, and to be investors. Our center was started in 2017 with a grant through the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And if you look at this Venn diagram, our North Star, the center of what we do, is that our aim is to remove barriers so that people can live fulfilled lives. And so the first few years, we really focus our efforts on K through 12 educational research through the notion of understanding what models, what access, what innovations, and what opportunities exist, particularly for families and fragile communities. And what we're doing tonight through this Women and Money Kickoff is really to understand and to invite our campus, our students, our staff, our faculty, and even the Albany community to understand what does it mean to have access to home ownership. And then finally, some of the work that we're engaging in is through higher education research and understanding what are some of the factors that persist through their discipline, particularly in STEM disciplines. So what we hope to have happen, we have 62 people who pre-registered. In fact, 63, I just checked the numbers again. And what we'll see is that while this is Women and Money, we're hoping that men will attend as well so that they can share the information with their wives and their daughters and their aunts and their nieces and the friends and the women in their families. What you will see throughout the presentation is a QR code. We ask that you will utilize your cell phone's camera. If you have an iPhone, just hold your camera up to the QR code. It will activate a website that will afford you the opportunity to conduct or provide us with some feedback on a survey. And this is tonight's panel. We have an amazing panel of experts, scholars, practitioners who will share with you tonight in very short order some of the work that they've been doing for years. And we invite you to pop some questions in the chat area. Those of you who were able to access the webinar through your through your computers, even if you're in your cell phones, you should be able to click the button that affords you the opportunity to chat with us. If not, we're recording this session. And what we hope will happen again is that you will engage us in the future in some activities. Here's the run of show, and each of the participants, by the way, will introduce themselves as they present in a moment. This is the run of show, and we recognize it now at 6:28. We're well into it, but we'll play catch up, in fact. And what we'll do in the absence of the Q&A that's denoted on the agenda, if we don't have questions or if we're unable to address your questions now, we will be happy to hold off on the Q&A section for the evening at the end of the presentation, because we value and we know that you will value what you're about to hear from our presenters, and certainly that's important. And the last thing I'll share again, finally, you're going to see this little QR code throughout. We'd love your feedback. So without further ado, I welcome Rashonda Muldrow of the Real Estate Concierge, who will talk to us about real estate and the housing market. Rashonda, I'll stop sharing and you can take it away. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Dr. Monds, I will need your assistance because I had to switch to my phone. So I will need your assistance with the PowerPoint, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. All right, so like Dr. Monds said, my name is Rashonda Muldrow. I am the owner and broker here at the Real Estate Concierge. Next slide. And I am from Albany. I'm a real estate broker. I've been in the industry now. This is going into my 15th year, and I can say this is truly a passion of mine, especially educating those about the home ownership process. I am a native Albanian. I did graduate from Albany State University with my bachelor's degree in management, and I have a master's degree in business administration. So, of course, it did not take that to pursue a real estate career. I just kind of got thrust into it, but I can say it's absolutely something I love. And I'm so excited to share information with you all on the homeownership process. Next slide. Okay, so real quick, if you all would just, I don't know if they can see the screen, but these are the 7 steps to the home buying process. And I wish that if you could take a screenshot, because we will eventually go through each one individually, maybe in the other sessions. But I just want to go and highlight the different things about the process. Now, step 1, which is the buyer's consultation. And this, to me, is the most important step. This consultation is when you will reach out to a licensed realtor. And I will come back to the definition of a realtor and a real estate agent. There is a difference, but this is a time that you reach out to a realtor to decide what exactly it is that you want to purchase, or what's your purpose in purchasing. And I say purpose because the process of buying a home can be very stressful. But if you remember the reason why you get into it from the beginning and you stick to that purpose, that will be your guiding light through the process, and it'll get you through it. Now, to decipher between a realtor and a real estate agent is someone who actually took the exam, the state exam, passed it, and became licensed to practice real estate. A realtor is a individual who is licensed. However, they have joined the National Association of Realtors, the Georgia Association of Realtors, and their local association, and they are bound by the code of ethics. So I always tell buyers, you want to, not saying that you can't go with just a regular licensed real estate agent, but you want to try to hire a realtor who has gone through the code of ethics. They've got extensive training on dealing with clients and the process itself. They're held to a higher standard. So, okay, they're held to a higher standard. So those are the kind of people you want representing you in a transaction. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so this is the outline that I wanted to show the benefits of a buyer's agent. And of course, the buyer's agent is the agent that represents the buyer in the transaction, and the selling agent is the one that represents the seller. Their responsibility is to assist you in finding a home. Number one, locate a home that you're interested in, how to make an offer, how to evaluate the pricing so you won't overpay for the property, and to basically hold your hand through the entire process. Now, something that a lot of people don't know is you don't pay a buyer's agent to represent you in most instances. In most instances, the seller has already pre-negotiated a commission to pay your buyer. So in essence, it's a free service to you. So for all my DIY buyers who like to go at it by themselves, the for sale by owners who like to pursue for sale by owner buyers, don't go at it alone. This is probably one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make. And I highly, highly, highly suggest that you go with a licensed professional to guide you through this process. You don't want to go at this alone, because you want to make sure you're getting the best deal possible. Okay. Okay. Step 2, next slide, is the loan pre-approval process. Now, this is where people get kind of nervous about the process. Next slide. The loan pre-approval process is basically you taking your information to the lender and saying, hey, I want to purchase this property. How much money will you give me? Now, this is an important step, because a lot of people skip straight to looking for a home, step 3 or step 4. And no, a good realtor is going to first have that pre-approval in hand, because it makes you a strong buyer. It shows that you've done your homework. You've already turned in everything that you need to your lender, and that you are pre-approved and ready to go. This speaks volumes against the person who may not be pre-approved, and the seller may not take their offer very seriously. So you want to go ahead, have at least your 2 most recent bank statements, your 2 most recent check stubs, and your 2 most recent tax returns. Those are the biggest things that you would need in the pre-approval process, and you want to make sure that you have those items ready to go. Step 3 in searching for a home. This is something that everybody likes to do. Everybody likes to get out and go and look for homes, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you want to make sure that you shop with intention. This particular market that we're in right now, we are still sort of we're transitioning into a buyer's market, but it's still, because of the lack of inventory, we are still in a competitive seller's market. So long gone are the days you're just kind of browsing through and looking, well, I think I got. No, you do most of your shopping online. When you go to the house itself, you're pretty much just verifying what you saw online. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you know the amenities that you want, the location you want to live in, and what you want to pay. Okay. Once you're out viewing homes, that's what the agent's job is, to take you to these particular properties. Or even if it's a for sale by owner, you can make your own appointments with those particular for sale by owners and to see the property itself. Okay. And the next slide is, I'm not sure if the next slide is developing a price strategy, but the developing a price strategy is coming up with a good offer, a solid offer to convince the seller to sell you their home. You don't want to come in with a lowball offer. Again, this is a seller's market, which is transitioning to a buyer. It hasn't gotten there yet, but it's transitioning to a buyer's market. But because of the low inventory levels, everything is really competitive. So it's important that you get with a real estate agent or a realtor to make sure you know exactly what you should be offering so your offer can be competitive. Okay, so another part that is important is you want to compare the seller's pricing to recent homes in the area. Again, you don't want to overpay for a property. So if the house you're looking at is $100,000 or $150,000, but everything else around it is selling for much less, you want to make your offer based on what is selling in the neighborhood. You don't want to overpay. You don't ever want to be the biggest house, the house that you paid the most for on the block. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are competitive with your pricing, and that's why you need a realtor to help you pull those comparable sales in that particular neighborhood to know what has sold. Good comps, or what we call comps or comparable sales, are properties that are sold in the last 6 months and that are equivalent to the subject property or the property that you're interested in size and age. Okay. Now, multifamily homes are a little bit different. Like if you have a duplex, mainly we look at single family homes when we're working with first-time home buyers. But you can't compare, you have to compare apples to apples. So a property that's a duplex would not be a good comparison for a single family home, and vice versa. Okay. Okay. Now the next 2 is basically writing, negotiating the offer. Again, we're going to go into further that in our other webinars or our other seminars, but want to make sure your offer is strong. I've heard people that have written love letters for particular properties that they're in love with, and we call it a love letter because you're basically expressing yourself to the seller as to why you would, be a good candidate for this home. So that's a good thing if it's a very competitive home, or else just make an offer where you're not asking for maybe all the closing costs. Maybe you're not asking for certain concessions. Those are things that sellers do look for. Okay. Now, the next thing is managing the transaction through the closing. Our job is to get you to the closing table. Once we get you to the closing table, it does not necessarily stop right there. We have that relationship with you now that we're to allow you, send you opportunities about maybe there's equity in your home, or maybe your home we can use your home for an investment property. So you want to maintain that relationship with a good realtor that can educate you about the area that you purchase in at all times. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. Again, my name is Rashonda. I am accepting new clients, and I love to educate others about the process of purchasing a home. And you can use the QR code if you want to contact me. I am on all social media. You can email me if there are any additional.
Thank you, Rashonda. Fantastic. And those of you who have the ability to drop a chat in, we'd love to hear from you. And while we're transitioning, I'm going to queue up the next presentation by Tanita, who's going to chat with us a bit about entrepreneurship. So just give me a moment and I will tee up the presentation for Miss Tanita McKnight.
As we get through these technical challenges this evening. Glad that you all sacrificed a Tuesday evening to find out how you can be empowered as a woman to take control of your finances as well as take control of your future. Now, my portion of it will focus on entrepreneurship. I want to talk about the power of the purse in women in entrepreneurship. You've heard about women being able to become homeowners, and you've gotten a peek at what is to come for home ownership. And then there are several other ladies that will be talking with you this evening, but I'm going to focus on the business piece. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, and then in honor of preserving time, go straight through the presentation so that we can get to the other ladies and keep in mind in time. So if you'll hit the next slide for me. I am a Georgia native, born and bred. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, but I moved to Albany at 4. So Albany is my hometown. That's the city that raised me. And I've been working with business owners for the past 8 years in business development and community and economic development in the city of Albany for an organization called Albany Community Together. I am a certified economic development finance professional. I have gone through training as an incubator manager with a focus on business development and managed a business incubator for the city of Albany. I also have a heart for coaching and connecting people with the desire and dedication and gumption to do the work. Those are the key things: the desire, dedication, and gumption to do the work. Because a lot of people desire to go into business, but they don't want to necessarily do the work that it entails. And it does entail some work, but history has shown that it can be done and it will continue to be done. Now, I want to go on to the next slide and give you some data. Data is important when we're talking about finding out things and ways that we can actually grow our business. It's important to inform us. It's important to help us make decisions. It's important to change policy. It's important to provide resources. So the data is definitely useful. And in addition to the data that I want to share with you, I want to go over your why, your who, your what, and your how when we talk about your business and using a business model canvas. So just a little bit of data. Now, it's been observed that women control 20 trillion in annual spending. Now, that's housing, education, food, clothing, and health. Yet in these sectors, there's still disproportionate leadership roles and income. That's the power of the purse, at least 20 trillion. So there definitely is numbers when it comes to how we spend. But only 26% or 26 women are found as CEOs at Fortune 500 companies. So there's numbers in the spending, but there's lack in the income. According to the Pew Research, this makes up only 5.2% of the female population. Women and minorities have been fueling the U.S. boom in business over the past 2 years. The growth rate of women in entrepreneurship outweighs the growth rate of other male counterparts from 2016 to 2021, 1.95% versus the 1.45% respectively. And then it was reported in Business Wire this March, there's growth in women entrepreneurship, and it's up 48%, outpacing male counterparts by 20%. Women own 4 out of 10 firms in America, despite the lack of investment. And in 2020, 2.3% of women-owned businesses received venture capital funding, which is 2.5 times less than their male counterparts. The revenue generation of women-owned businesses is around 1.8 trillion annually. Again, thinking about the power of our spending being that 20 trillion versus our income being that 1.8 trillion in women-owned businesses. And specifically, women of color generate 422.5 billion, that's with a B, in revenue. So we're out there making strides despite the outpacing that we have when it comes to income and when it comes to leadership. Don't let that get you down, though, because we are still making strides. And like I said earlier, when you look at the numbers, it's women and minorities that have been fueling the boom in business over the last 2 years. Now, let's talk about the top 5 motivating factors for starting a business. I'm sure that you all have many of reasons for starting a business, but the top 5 we want to look at are financial security, flexibility, pursuing a passion, serving a community, seeing a vision come to life. So that financial security piece may be coming up with an extra income stream, making sure that there's another stream of income coming in so that you'll be secure financially, not only for today, but in the future. And women tend to think about the future, whereas men, a lot of times, and I can pick on men because there are no men in this webinar, but men tend to think about the right now. What's going on right now? Give me the money right now. Let me see those dollar amounts. But women, we are forward thinking, we have vision, and we think about what's next, what's going to happen in the future. And so that financial security piece is a strong factor for us when we're thinking about starting a business. The flexibility. A lot of us are the heads of households. We need to be able to juggle a lot of things and take care of our families. And so that motivates us to start our own business. But I will tell you, when you start your own business, don't think that you're getting away from a 9-to-5 or a 40-hour week, because there is plenty of work yet to be done when you're starting a business. And when you're starting a business, those 40-hour weeks will seem like a dream when you're starting your business, because you'll be working 60 to 80 hours to get that business up and off the ground. But don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. Now, another reason is to pursue a passion. You've always wanted to do something. You've always wanted to open up a restaurant. You've always wanted to do hair. When you were younger, people told you you were the best at doing hair, but you didn't have the licensing. So you've gone and you've gotten the licensing, but you're scared to take that next step. So you're working up under someone else. But now you're ready to take that next step, and you're motivated, and you just need that extra push. The fourth is to serve a community. A lot of businesses are starting because there's a community need. There's a problem in their communities and their surroundings, and they're trying to figure out, how can I solve this problem? I don't see any other resources that can address this problem or can address it the way I think it should be addressed. And so how can I fill in that gap? And then again, seeing a vision come to life. You know, you might have had a family vision, and it kind of goes back to pursuing your passion. Sometimes your passion can be what your vision was, or your grandmother's vision was, or your mother or father's vision was for you. It's now become an adopted passion, and it's your turn to see that that vision comes to life. So those are several great and the leading 5 top motivators for starting a business. Now, we talk about the motivators, but we also talked about the barriers, right? We talked about the things that the odds that women are up against when it comes to finding that financing, when it comes to even making that money and keeping that day job. So let's look at the top 4 barriers that women have when starting a business. Income, capital. If you decide to continue to work your job, which I advise, don't quit your day job. Keep a job, keep a check, and keep a relationship. If you're going to do that, you need to make sure you have money set aside to start your business, because we've seen with that data that I shared with you earlier that it's a challenge for you to get investments, and it's a challenge for you even when you're on your job to have extra money to put aside for that vision and for that dream. Credit is another barrier. You know, we talked about head of household. A lot of times, if you're in the position to where you've had some challenges, as many people do, it's called life, and you get into that position, a divorce, healthcare reasons, a loss of a job, whatever comes up. It's all natural. No one's perfect. So you have those things, but credit could be a huge barrier for women. We find that. Knowledge, having the knowledge, you have the passion is there. You may have some experience, but having the knowledge to get you from point A to point B. And we'll touch on that in session 2. I'll talk about some resources, and we'll do some mapping when you're starting a business. And then lack of resources, not being able to have that access to capital, not having that auntie that has that savings that she's been saving for your future years and years ago so that you can start a business, or not having that that lottery windfall that I pray for every Wednesday and Friday night, not having that in place. And so lack of resources are like one of the hugest reasons that women, in particular, anyone, but definitely women, decide to not go into business. But I'm here to tell you that these can all be overcome. And as you see with the numbers of showing, the data showing, women have overcome a lot of these barriers because they're outpacing the men, 1.95% to 1.45% respectively. So even though they're barriers, they can all be overcome. Now, this is a business model canvas. The difference between a business model canvas and a business plan, there are a few differences, but there's some very key differences in a business plan that you won't see on a business model canvas. The business plan is going to be very much more detailed. It's going to have the steps. It's going to tell us who you are, what you do, and how you do it as an organization or a business. But it's also going to have the steps to get there. It's going to have the research, the market research put in. It's going to have your financials, detailed financials. It's going to talk more about your startup capital. It's going to talk about key resources to help you get to that next step. Whereas the business model canvas, that's an idea, and that's helping you to jot things down about how you want your business to work. Key people that you want involved in your business, very important in both a business plan and a business model canvas. Your target audience, you're going to need to have that explored in both the model as well as the plan, your resources that you have available, and it's going to be concise, something that you can just look over and adjust as accordingly when you decide you want to take that next step and develop a plan and share it with an investor or a lender. So usually investors and lenders are going to want to see that detailed plan. They're going to want to see that thought that went into it, and they're going to want that data that we talked about, those research numbers, to show and back up what you're talking about. But this model canvas is going to be coming off the cuff, coming out of your head. You're going to have some information because you want to make sure that you are thinking clearly before you take that next step, but it's not going to be as detailed. Now, we're going to look at these different steps in here, and then I also have the strategizer, which is the business model canvas that we're using here, that I can share with you attendees so that you can fill out your own business model canvas and take the next step into developing it into a plan if you decide to go further. Now, you want to name the purpose, which is your why, the reason why you're starting a business. We talked about the top 5 motivators, but you may have a motivator that wasn't on the list. But that's your why. That's your reason that you're deciding to go ahead and start your business. Then you want to look at your target audience. Who are your people that you're going to be selling to? Are they small business owners? Are they students? Are they parents? And you're going to go into the demographic information on that. It'll be more detailed on your plan, but you want to at least list who your target audience is. And you want to put that in your customer segment section of the strategizer model, business model. If you're selling women's clothing, that is going to be your target audience, women. If you are selling children's clothing, you have direct target audience and indirect target audiences. If you're selling children's toys, children don't have the money to buy the toys, their parents do. So you're marketing to the children, but your parents are also your clients, and so they need to be in your customer segment as well. Who's involved in the business? You want to look at it from the partner's standpoint as well as your resources. The people, the places, machines, software, patents, intangible assets that are used every week, right? So you want to look at on your section where it says key partners. If you've got business partners, you want to put them in that section. If you've got key players, a business manager, if you're opening up a restaurant, you want a chef in there. If you're the chef, that's still a role. If you're a micro enterprise, you may not have all of those different positions and people to fill those different positions, or the startup capital to pay people to fill those different positions, but that is still a role. And so that's still a key partner that you want to list. And then your resources. If you're going to be starting a restaurant, your resources are going to be your kitchen equipment. Your resources is probably going to be some software that you can use to handle your sales transactions and to order your inventory and your supplies for your restaurant. So you want to make sure that you put that in the key resources section. And then your value proposition. What makes you special? What makes you stand out? You know, you might be going into the hair care industry and there's plenty of salons in town, but what makes your salon the best salon to go to? Is it your professionalism? Is it your time management? I know I hate going to a salon where I'm going to be there all day. So can you get me done in an hour and a half? Or am I going to get, my hair's going to look nice, but I'm going to be there all night. Am I going to be there for 4 or 5 hours? So look at what you think makes you special, what makes you different, what makes you stand out. And that's going to be your value that you add as your value proposition. Next, we want to look at your key activities. I'm sorry, we'll go back to that previous slide. You want to list your key activities to serve your customer, your processes. You want to definitely have that on your business model so that you can explain how you do your operations. Then you want to look at how you reach your customers. That's going to be key to your marketing strategy. How you get in contact with them, whether it's, mailers, if it's social media, which is huge and can help you save money, whether it's a television commercial, which will cost you a lot of money, or whether it's word of mouth. You want to list those different ways that you reach, those different channels. You want to list this very key and very important, your expenses and your income streams, your revenue streams. How do you make your money? How often do you make your money? What do you charge? What is going to be bringing money into the business, and then what are your expenses? And your expenses are going to be expenses that you occur as often as you occur them, as frequently as you occur them. It could be monthly, it could be rent, it could be your supplies, it could be weekly. Whatever those expenses are, you want to list those, because you'll take all of that from the business model and you'll expand on those in your business plan. The next time we're meeting, I want to be able to go over some of your business models. So I hope that once you finish out the survey, we can put in the actual chat an actual the strategizer business model sample that you can download and complete, because I'd love to hear some of you all's business models. If you're already in business, that's okay. You can go back and do it. We have a lot of people who are already in business and they've never done a business plan. They've never done a business model. They've just cracked at it and they've been running and going on, chugging along. But I'd love for you all to share some of those with us the next time we meet. And we're going to take a deep dive into the resources that are available for business owners to start their business. There are plenty of resources. There are federal level resources, state and local, and we'll just do a real big deep dive into those next time. So I hope to see you all at the next workshop, session 2. Thank you.
Kathaleena, we can't hear you. I think you're still on mute.
I am. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my deck. What a great presentation by both you, Tanita, and as well as you, Rashonda Muldrow. And I hope and pray that we still have participants on the call. And I recognize that some of our participants have had some technology challenges, as we did, getting in, and we are recording the session. And so we're now at 6:59. We have 30 minutes left, surprisingly. We were able to play catch up, and I know that you've gotten a wealth of it. So we're going to have Adrian Lance Lucas on deck now to talk about budgeting, because we recognize, again, it's just kind of ecosystem in terms of, buying a house. You also have to understand, what does your budget look like? What are the options for you to invest? And certainly the question regarding entrepreneurship. So Adrian, you can take it away. If you'd like, I can share my screen, or you can.
Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to jump in, Kathaleena, and try to get through this 15 minutes very quickly.
No worries. Thank you.
First of all, we are calling this discipline.
It's 7 o'clock.
Finish wealthy. So you've heard about real estate, you've heard about entrepreneurship, and there's some discipline that goes into both of those things in order to achieve both of those as an end goal for your financial planning. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself, go through some budgeting basics. We're going to talk about what's going to happen in the next couple of sessions after this particular meeting. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework for you to take away so that when we come back together, we can go through some additional nuts and bolts. So from a background, I am from a small town in Minnesota called Wayzata. I'm one of 5 children, and my father was in the service. And so I mention those things because being one of 5, as you can imagine, we all had to budget. We all had to budget as we were working through, whether it was budgeting for which toy we were going to get or negotiating to get that toy, buying your time, just having your position in the family unit requires some budgeting skills that you already have. I graduated from Spelman College in the class of 90 with a Bachelor of Arts in Economics, and then I went on to the Harvard Business School and got my MBA. I launched my finance career at General Mills. So those of you that know Cheerios and Wheaties and Yoplait, that's where I started my career, thinking that I wanted to become a corporate controller or a chief financial officer. And in doing that, so I've been in love with budgeting and just trying to keep track of the money for a long time. I had a couple of special awards while at General Mills. I received the Chairman's Award for customer service, but it was really working with the sales division Again, trying to figure out how to cut costs to improve the margin or how much the company is actually making from a sales standpoint. And again, all of this is tying into my love of budgeting and how it translates into other things that we do in our personal lives. I also served as the former chief operating officer for a private equity fund. We managed and owned 2 million square feet of light industrial warehouses across the country. In addition to business offices that you see, like the Bank of America building, we did those type of office buildings. We were listed in the top 10 of private equity companies in Black enterprise for consecutive years, and our portfolio was valued at nearly $250 million before we actually sold. Currently, I'm the president of Lance Lucas and Associates, which is a business strategy, operation, and fundraising development company. And I'm a co-founder of Kid Entrepreneurs Need Opportunities, which is the Keno Fund. I'm studying now to be a chartered advisor in philanthropy, and I would have my degree finished for that in April of 2023. So that's just a little bit about who I am and why I've gotten into the whole financial services industry and what's so important for all of us to know as women. I think it was Tanita that mentioned statistics are important for us to understand. So I'm just going to share very few of these because the others will share them as well as they go deeper into their presentations. But number one, only 1/3 of Americans actually maintain a household budget. 1/3. So when you think about that, we have 330 million people in the United States, okay? And of that, there are about 22 million who are millionaires. Okay. And that's only 6%. But what I would argue is we're teaching budgeting, which is the foundational principles of where to go in your finances. Jennifer's going to come behind me with her presentation and talk about the other core piece, which is investments, right? So that 22 million, that 6%, those are the people that combine both being able to budget and they're investing, and they may be entrepreneurs, as Tanita mentioned. And with Rashonda, the fastest path to wealth is owning a home or real estate. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed those things out because they're so important. We mentioned that 30% also have a long-term financial plan. I'm going to take you through just why do we even worry about a budget? And there's several of these things that I'll run through really quickly for you. Number one, it helps you to determine what patterns exist in your spending because you can't just operate blindly when it comes to your money. It helps you achieve your financial goals because you're focused on it daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on when you track your money that you're spending. It also helps you become more conscious of how you handle your money and how you reign as a queen over your spending because we don't want to be a pauper and just wait for a handout. We want to make sure that we have definite logic, strategy, and execution around our money. It helps you to have better control so that you can allocate more of your savings into your investments because it's not just tracking what you have and how you're spending it, but we got to figure out how to get more into our pockets in order to achieve those final goals. And then finally, it's having an awareness that provides essential financial discipline. The operative word is discipline. And I gave you the definition here. Discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. So the punishment when you don't budget, we know what that looks like, right? The punishment is you don't have enough. You're overspending. You're at risk of putting your family at risk for having a home or roof over their heads, or just the things that you want to have to live a comfortable life. Okay? Because I believe in thriving, not just, surviving. We all need to delay. So as we look ahead, I want to talk to you just about today. What we're going to talk about there are 6 different types of personal budgets, okay? And your homework, I want this to tie into your homework. Of these 6, I want you to figure out where you are. Which type of budget do you currently practice, or which type of budget do you think fits your current behaviors today? Okay. So number 1 is we have people that fall into a bucket of no budget. I'm just living life, I'm spending, right? And I seem to be doing okay. So those are the no budget folks. Number 2, we have people that spend first. Okay. They spend first and that's their budget. These are people that know I make plenty of money and I'm not worried about my expenses because I have so much money. I could never outspend through spending using my expenses for the amount of money that I have. If that's your budget category, let me know the next time that we get together. The third is our savings first. These are people, sometimes they are entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur. I believe in saving first means spending on me or investing in my business so that I can continue to make more money in the future. So you may fit into that category. Okay. The fourth category is 50, 30, 20. 50, 30, 20. And you see this as a rule here. These are people that take a percentage of the money that they make and they're very disciplined about how they spend those dollars. 50% goes for their needs, which includes their rent, their mortgage, their car payment, utilities, and groceries. 30% goes to their wants, their streaming services. Some people can't live without Netflix, HBO Max, and all of that, okay? So that's the 30% on their shopping, their vacations, or their mental health. And then the other 20% is spent on their emergency fund, their retirement planning, their children's education, and credit card payments or debt. Okay. So that's the 50-30 rule. The fifth personal budgeting type is zero based. If anyone has ever heard of Dave Ramsey, right? He's in the churches and he's talking about budgeting and financing. He believes in zero based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting means you write down every single thing that you spend. If you handed some money to somebody on the street, you write that down. If you spent, a certain amount at church, or it's not digital in your application, every single dollar that you spend, it balances to zero. There is no miscellaneous or slush fund that you put into the side. So that is your personal budget of zero-based. And the final one is spending ceiling, okay? And the spending ceiling is, you know how much you make, you know roughly how much you want to spend. This is what we have our grandmama's shoebox spending, right? You take your money, you get your cash, you put it in a jar. At the end of the month, what's left, if there's zero left, that's the time to stop spending. That is your spending ceiling. So you set aside the amount that you're going to spend every month. And once you hit that ceiling, that is it. So I'm going to run through those real quickly. The no budget camp, the spending first camp, the saving first camp, 50, 30, 20 camp, zero-based spending, right? And spending ceiling. Those are the categories that I want you all to remember for next time that we get together. And I think I just have a few minutes left. And so what I'm going to do is talk about what we're going to do when we get together the next time. We are going to break down the details of your spending type. We'll show you an actual budget, right? Because your budget is comprised of 2 different elements at the top level. It's how much you bring in, your income, okay, minus your taxes, because you can't spend those taxes, right? So it's your disposable income, if you will. And then we're going to look at your expenses. And on the expense side, we're looking at what are your fixed expenses, those that don't change, they're the same amount every single month. So for those that have utilities, how they have the balanced utilities, you can pay it the same amount every month. That helps people budget. Right? And then you have flexible expenses. These are the expenses, they change at random every month. You may get close, but it's harder for you to estimate but we need to understand what your trends are, what your practices are as we begin to go through your budget. Right. And then what you have left over after we go through your expenses, the fixed and flexible, from the amount of money that you have, it is your disposable income. That is what is left over. And we need to decide when it's left over, what are we doing with that money that's left over? Okay. So we'll begin to go through those things in more detail and breaking that down. And then we'll also give you some tracking tools and resources so that you can manage your budget as you go forward. So on my last slide, this is just my LinkedIn profile, Instagram, email, etc. And Kathaleena, I would be remiss if I did not mention I have family in Cordele. I'm not from Albany. For those of you that are down there in Houston County, Sumter County, you may know Cordele or Leslie. So I'm close in the family. So I just wanted to mention that before I wrapped up. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And yes, Cordelia is right up the road. If you could just simply stop sharing. Thank you for a great presentation. Wow. And while technology was not our friend in the initial 10 to 15 minutes of this conversation, we can rest assured that it was certainly well worth the wait. And I appreciate you, Adrian and Tanita, as well as Rashonda. And without further ado, our last presenter of the evening is Jennifer McReynolds, who's going to share a little bit about investing. And what I hope is happening is those of you who are on the call are getting excited about engaging in the sessions that we hope to have face-to-face so that we can help to kind of alleviate any technology difficulties that we might experience. And so again, thank you again, Adrian. And if we see your home people, we'll say hello to them. So Jennifer, if you'd like to queue up your PowerPoint presentation, you're welcome to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Monds. And y'all, I am so super excited as we wrap this thing down for this evening. I hope that, you are already making plans to kick off with us in the series, because we all should have a goal to be homeowners, right? To build wealth through home ownership. Rashonda's going to lead us through that. We need to be savvy consumers, savvy buyers, right? And then ultimately savvy sellers, right? To be opportunistic. Um, and then what I heard from Tanita is, man, we need to have a business, right? First of all, I mean, I don't know if you guys caught this, but we need to have a side hustle first. And then that side hustle needs to start paying us like a main hustle before we leave that side hustle. And so I'm super excited about that. All of that, man, is going to take us budgeting, because at the end of the day, disciplined women want to finish rich, right? Wealthy, but we have to be able to manage that money in order to execute in all those areas. So thank you so much, Dr. Monds. I think you're controlling it, so I appreciate that. If you can go to the next slide, I will tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Jennifer McReynolds. I graduated from Spelman College. There's a few of us here on the panel. I'm excited. While I was at Spelman, I got a chance to work and really start in entrepreneurship. My husband had launched a business to sell collegiate merchandise. And so I, was in the thick of it with him. And so we did that. We raised just enough money really to kind of go out of business. And there were just some great learnings even from that. But when I graduated from school, listen, I started off with two really great parents who really were, blue collar workers. My dad was a police officer. My mom worked in the school system. And so we didn't, we were probably lower middle class growing up. But I knew that most of the pain points that came from my parents' lives and just watching them had to do with finances. And so I knew that I had to do something different than they had done so that I could have a different outcome, right? And not struggle in the same ways that they struggled. And so I entered Spelman with the sole goal of getting to a job where I could make the money. And for me, I thought that was Wall Street, right? I said, this is where they're printing the money. I got to get there. And so when I graduated, I did go work on Wall Street, had a ton of fun. But what I realized pretty quickly is that I wasn't really impacting anybody's life there. I wasn't showing them how to make money, because the people that I worked with weren't people, they were institutions. And so there was nobody there that I was showing how to make a difference in their lives, how to grow their wealth. in a meaningful way because they were institutions. And so from there, I actually got lured away during the financial collapse in 2008 to go work for a venture capital firm that was doing some really great things, right? It was a social venture capital fund. I was the third founder of the fund, and we worked in technology, but really empowering people in developing countries to become entrepreneurs. So kind of like a Shark Tank, if you will, but in third world countries, all related to technology. Super fun. I absolutely love the work there. And then, you know, right around year 8 of being there, I had at that point 2 kids, and then all of a sudden this third child showed up and things started to change at work. And so, Tanita, you talked a little bit about why people go into entrepreneurship. And so I had had great experiences at all of the jobs that I'd had up to that point. And then, you know, in my 8th year at this company that I absolutely loved, things totally changed, right? Um, I worked very closely with the management team, and I started getting iced out of meetings, you know, things that were for me to handle. You know, I just stopped being included. And so I thought, okay, well, this is really, really interesting. Let me let it play off a little bit. And then we were raising another fund. We were running out of cash. We were raising some money, and the money just wasn't coming. And so our CEO asked the entire management team to forego some, you know, our salaries for a short period of time. And we said, sure, you know, we've got ownership in here. Why not? We believe in this thing. And so 3 months became 6 months, 6 months became a year. And at that point, my husband, who had been running our financial practice for about 18 years at that point, he said, hey, if you're going to work for free, you're going to work for free for yourself until you figure out what to do, right? He said, you're not going to work for free for somebody else. He said, so why don't you come join me in our business and you decide what you want to do, what you're passionate about. And so that leads me to today. We run a financial investment and advisory practice together. I run pretty much the investment side of our practice. And so I love, love, love what I do. I love what I do because I get to pick and choose who I work with, right? And for me, what's most important is helping women to realize that, hey, we can start wherever we are and we can finish way better than we ever imagined, but we got to start, right? And so taking a look at those things. So, hey, I know that those of you that are out here, you may fall into a few different categories, right? You may be a college student and you may think, I don't know how any of this stuff really applies to me, but man, you got to be at the next session, right? Because we're going to start to tie this together, man. Just imagine as a college student now, what if you could retire by the time you're 40, right? And maybe you don't stop working, but maybe you stop working in the same way for money that you have to work when you start working, okay? Maybe you get to work in your passion, or maybe you're already retired, or maybe your parents are retired, but they're starting to see those retirement funds have declined majorly this year, right? You need to be at the next meeting because we're going to talk about that, right? And some strategies on what to do there. Or maybe you're somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe you feel bad because you know that you should be doing some things. Maybe you should have been working on that budget. Maybe you should have been investing and saving, and you should have done that. And maybe some people made you feel bad about that. Listen, ignore those people. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for what you haven't done. Make sure you surround yourself with people that can look at where you're at and say, hey girl, let me help you get to that next level. Okay, let's put some stuff together. Let's lock arms. Okay, that's why you need to be at the next session. And so just to listen, why this matters, I think, you know, if I'm right, look, most of those of you that are on the call are all women. But if you're not, I mean, you know some women. You've got sisters, you got a mama, right? You've got aunties, you've got nieces, and this stuff is important. Look, Black women face a 90% wealth gap, right? The median Black household owns 90% less wealth than the median white household. Y'all, that's huge. That's worlds apart, right? And the gap is even larger for single Black women, okay? There's an earnings gap, y'all. You know, even though Black women are paid, and we see this, right? Black women are paid 35% less than white men and 15% less than white women, right? The gap is widest between the ages of 20 to 35. we're going to talk about the earnings gap, right? And what are some things to do to maybe get you a side hustle in your passion. Let's try to identify some of that, right? Where you can start to make up the difference, okay? So you don't have fully 100% someone else controlling how you make your money, okay? There's an education gap. Look, I realize that Black women are getting educated at historic numbers, okay? We have closed a lot of gaps there, but there's still a gap as compared to white women, right? So there's 10 percentage points difference between the education attained between Black women and white women. And there's all kinds of history to that, right? It starts off at, pre-K education, right? Or the lack of access to that kind of education. And then it just kind of, snowballs from there. And then access to capital, right? That also contributes to the wealth gap, right? The median single Black woman does not own a home, and single Black women are 24 times less likely to own a business and 20% less likely to be able to access bank funding, even if they do, right? So those are issues, y'all, that we need to address. Next, I think there might be one more. Okay. And then there's a personal finances gap, right? Studies show Black women are less likely to own stocks. A lot of times it's because we don't understand the stock market. Listen, this is what I know. If you understand investing, somebody showed you that tends to be men who are taught, if they're taught in our families, right? Women, we don't tend to get that same information. We're passed over for that. And then, sorry guys. And then when it's time for us to start learning, or maybe when we should, then we get into a point in our lives where we're managing so many different things that we don't have the time. So next thing you know, you wake up and you realize, oh gosh, I haven't opened an IRA yet, but I've heard people talk about it. I don't even know what IRA stands for, right? And so it's things like that. It's the lack of information. And sometimes it's the fact that no one has just sat down with us to break things down in a way that helps us understand. So we're going to address that personal finances gap. Next slide. And look, as we get ready to wrap up our series, these are some of the things that we're going to cover, right? One of the things that I like to work with is identifying what money mindset you come from, right? Because look, we are all made up of our experiences that we come to the table with, right? How we've been raised, our environment around us, what our parents felt about money. We come to the table with all of that. And so we have to unpack some of that just to see, hey, how do I move forward from here? This is the type of money mindset I have. How do I overcome that, right? If I'm gonna be disciplined enough to finish wealthy, right? So we're going to work through that personal money story. Adrian talked about budgeting. There's a lot of work to be done there, right? Because every dollar that is being spent somewhere else, you can't put to either paying down your debt or accelerating that retirement, right? Making sure that you get to that, being wealthy part. And then we're going to talk about some life planning, right? How do you really accumulate and grow wealth? How do we put a plan together to say, hey, maybe I have a number in mind. How do we get there, right? And then protecting what's important. Look, I'm a big proponent of sometimes you got to make sure you buy that estate plan before you build that estate plan, because if anything comes in between that part, if something should happen to you and, God forbid, you're no longer here, you've got some people that rely on your income and rely on you, period. We want to make sure there's no interruption to that while you're in the process of building that wealth plan. Okay. So we're going to do some of that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it. I think the next slide is my contact information, but listen, we are going to just provide just a ton of knowledge to you that you're going to get just by being part of the Center for Educational Opportunity. And so we want to make sure that you're able to tap into this wealth of knowledge from all of these ladies here. And I thank you all for being here and hanging in with us.
Thank you, Jennifer. And for the purpose for the audience's assistance, the QR code, you can see this on the slide. Thank you all. I'm going to stop sharing. And we are actually under budget. It is 7:26. And so if there's anyone on the call who called in, we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to actually try to attempt to unmute those persons who are in the call. Looks like we have a few attendees who stuck it out with us this evening. But again, we're going to share this this conversation more broadly with the hopes that we will to join our two-part session. And so what's going to happen next is it's going to give us, we're going to bring the presenters back. Hopefully we'll be on the ground. We'll do another session where it's very project-based, hands-on. Because again, what we heard tonight from all of the presenters is that we want to kind of demystify investing and entrepreneurship and real estate and budgeting. And we also want to be able to impact lives. You heard that from all of the presenters this evening. And so we welcome any questions that are on the table, even from the presenters. If you have questions, we can open the floor to you all if there's some other nuggets you want to share. And just for your own listening pleasure as well, one of the other things I'll share is we had more than 63 people to pre-register. So what we'll do is after this session, the presenters and myself will get together, we'll plan, we'll identify a date for session number 1. Since we have a dossier of emails, we'll send out an invitation. Our prayer is that we will be face-to-face for our session. We'd love to welcome each of you to the beautiful campus here in South Georgia. And so that will give us a chance to have a touch point for each of you, particularly those who registered and may or may not have been able to chime in. All right, are there any questions or any closing comments you want to share? Again, we welcome your feedback in terms of the QR code. That would be fantastic if you can give some feedback. Any questions or comments from the presenters? You are all fantastic and blessed to be a part of this conversation. Tanita, are you sharing your screen again?
I was trying to share that business model canvas, and I'm not that familiar with the WebEx sharing capabilities, but I wanted to make sure that the attendees got a copy of that so that they could fill it out and we could talk about it at the next session.
Worries, no worries. What we will do, and thank you for that, if each of the presenters are okay, I'll be happy to share even this evening's PowerPoint presentations with everyone who pre-registered. That's going to be another nugget that they can utilize. And I think in doing so, that should also help to empower them and to come and register for session 1 and 2. And so in closing at 7:29, I want to thank you all for attending the Women and Money Kickoff. And again, this was to wet your whistle, to see the kinds of conversations that we'll be having, the kinds of projects that we will engage you in, because ultimately the goal is certainly to be able to empower women toward economic freedom so that not only can we care for ourselves, but our families and our communities at large. And thank you for coming. We appreciate you and bid you Godspeed. Thank you.
Dr. Monds.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye now.
Have a
Good
good night.
evening.